by engaging the Father's heart and you carrying him and your family with you into engaging the Father's heart, then it's looking for the Father to reveal how he views it. So you're not seeing, it is so difficult when you're faced with the symptoms of the actual physical thing that's going on to not have that in view. And you can't be in denial. You know, denial is not the best way of doing it. And a lot of people in the faith movement, they used to be in denial of the symptoms, and it was just like, oh, I'm just professing faith and healing, and they were in denial. You can't be in denial. And actually, by going, engaging with God, engage the throne of grace, then offload to him everything you're feeling and give it to him and be real. And if there are frustrations or where you don't understand, share that with him. Tell him how you're really feeling about the scenario and feeling helpless and not knowing what to do. Just be really real and cast all those burdens and cares onto him, and then allow him to show you what he feels about it and show you how to brood over that situation. Because what the thing is to brood, and when you're brooding over what the Father's heart is for it, not over what it is presently. Because they may be facts, but the truth can overcome facts. But you want to make sure that you're knowing the truth from the Father's heart rather than what you want to be true. Right. And there's a huge difference between trying to make something happen that we want to happen and brooding over the Father's desires and intentions, and then becoming a voice that is an oracle of those intentions, which can then be creative into calling forth those things. So whenever I'm framing something, I never want to do it independently of the Father's heart, because Jesus only did what he saw the Father doing. And sometimes there are timing issues and there are bigger picture issues that we don't see because we're so focused on the situation that we want changed that we're not really getting necessarily the bigger picture and seeing the Father's perspective on it all, because we're sort of so focused. And it's obviously totally understandable because our emotions are completely drawn into that whole dynamic. You know, and I've never been in that situation in an ongoing sense, but I did when my grandson was sort of around one-ish. He went into hospital with encephalitis, and essentially they were saying that he was on the verge of death. And and again, it was like, what do you do? Well, you're sort of positively looking for that not to happen. And so I was able to go and see him. And when I went into the hospital room, I was able to in the spirit grab him, but I was able to pick him up in the flesh, and I took him into the realms of heaven with me in the spirit, but very, very real, because I had him held in my arms. And so I essentially just brought him to the Father for the Father to love on him. And then that's all I could do. I didn't know, I didn't have any details. I didn't know anything that I know now. This was probably, I don't know, 7-8 years ago, maybe more. And I didn't know any other thing about brooding and, choosing realities and everything. But my desire was obviously for life. And I brought him to the Father, and I just allowed the Father to touch him. And then within the next day, he woke up. He couldn't see and he couldn't hear. And it was like, well, I don't think that's the Father's desire for him. So I didn't let that fact change what I felt about the Father's desire for him. And within a day, he was seeing and hearing, and they sort of said, oh, he might have long-term hearing difficulties and seeing and all that. And he's had none of those issues. And that's the only thing I can relate to your situation. but it was a crisis situation rather than a sort of a chronic situation. But I just brought him to the Father and just let the Father touch him. And I think sometimes we try and do too much, or think we should do too much, and we're sort of, what can I do? I need to do something, and you get so emotionally involved, which you're naturally going to be, that sometimes it's hard to rest in that place of just trusting the Father and allowing the Father to show his heart to you, so then you can then outwork his heart. And I don't presume that I know his heart. Of course, I know he's a healer, and I know he loves us, but I don't presume to know the details, and I don't presume that I can make the decisions on timing or anything like that. I have to just sort of say, okay, I trust you, and then I'll do whatever you show me to do. And if that's just to rest and wait here, then I'm going to do that. But I'm just going to be open to hear. Now, I know it's hard not to go with an agenda, you know what I mean? Because we're so, well, I want the Father to do something. And it is, if we can go without the agenda and just carry them into the heart, but just offload everything and just come to that place where, Father, I'm just going to trust you, and just see where that takes you. You know, what does the Father's heart reveal? How does he show you anything in that place? I know it's hard because, you know, whenever there's a situation that is like that, you sort of almost like, well, I want to do something. I want it, and it's you're driven towards it. But that can be counterproductive, because we can be so tense that it's harder to hear what the Father's trying to communicate to us, because we're blinkered onto one subject, and that is the subject which is on our heart. So first of all, offload all that, you know, cast it all onto him, and then just in his presence, just wait and allow him to reveal anything to you that he needs to, and then go with that. And sometimes it takes a few times at that, you know. Sometimes don't get discouraged when thoughts keep coming into your mind, or don't get discouraged when you find it difficult to engage. That's okay. The Father knows. Just keep basically sharing with him, giving it to him. And I know people say, oh, don't keep taking it back up. But at the end of the day, you're in the situation where this is going on. You can't just be in denial or separate yourself from it, because it's a real situation. And I know people would try and give you advice of this, that, and the other. It's just, I can't give you exactly what it is the Father will show you. But the more you can come to that place where the Father is face to face, where you're engaging his heart, the more then your heart can come into alignment with his on the specifics, if there are any, you know, on what it is that he wants you to do or not do. You know, but it's you know, I feel for you, because it's just not easy when you're in a situation where it seems like you can't do anything, you know. And I've had situations even last year where I'm in situations where something was happening that I had no power over, and I wanted power over it because I wanted it to change, you know, I wanted to change it, but someone else is involved, and you can't change somebody else, you know. And so you feel somewhat powerless, but that's where trust comes in. Do I trust that God is good and he will bring something good out of this scenario, even when I don't understand and I can't work it out and I can't fathom it out? That's the place when, you know, I have to get to. And sometimes, you know, I had to get to the point where, okay, I am not going to ask you to change this person, because you can't change them to do what I want them to do. That's control, you know. So I'm not going to try and control this person by getting you to try and change them. I can just try and come to the point where I'm keeping my heart right, you know, I'm remaining positive. But bottom line is, sometimes you have to come to a point of acceptance of the situation for perhaps the situation to change, or that you change, you know. And actually in the situation, I couldn't change what was going on, but I changed in it. And therefore, the way I had to go through the emotions, I had to deal with the situation emotionally, deal with the grief of the situation I was feeling, not pretend, go through the process and come to a point where, okay, I still trust you, and I don't understand, but I'm putting my trust into you. And if the situation doesn't change, I've changed. And I now accept that God is good in it, and that if the situation doesn't change, then God will bring something good out of it, even though I would want it to change, you know. But if it doesn't, then I'm resting in the fact that I still trust in God. And sometimes it's like the whole faith thing can be very much like you can't admit there's any doubt, and you can't, and you get so, it gets so sort of intense that you can't be real, you know, about it. And with God, God just wants you to be real with him. And that's, he can take everything you throw onto him, you know, every emotion you've got, you know, you can throw it onto him, you can cast it onto him, you can give him all the burdens. You know, he wants to carry our griefs and our sorrows. So it's a sorrowful situation. You know, you cannot be happy about it, but you can have joy on the inside, you know, which is an inner sense of the rest that you have in your relationship with God, even though the situation is really, really difficult.